Hi, this is Am here with the Bulletin Board Heroes here at Zacks Traders Cafe for Monday, the 16th of September. Starting off with the FTSE 100, which is dithering a bit, but still above the 50-day line. The price action today wholly above that 50-day line there at 82.40. And while we're above that on an end-of-day close basis, still looking for a move up to the top of the range, 8400 plus. On the downside, support there at the floor of the rising trend channel, 82.10. If we do break down below that, then there's obviously the risk of a move down to 80.25 and the floor of that broadening red triangle there from May. But at the moment, looks as though we're resting above a rising 50-day line. Moving on to the DAX, and here, decent movement, but a bit of resistance there, basically at the top of the gap there, which was 18,700, so we need an end-of-day close above that to give us the move through towards 19,000, the best levels of the year. On the downside, hoping that we won't see anything lower than 18,300, the 50-day line and the floor of that rising trend channel from last October. On to the Dow, which obviously we looked at yesterday, but here it is again. And here, decent break of that July resistance line there at 40,600, and still looking for the top of that rising trend channel from this time last year as high as 42,800 by the end of next month. RSI at 60, so at a good place, not overbought at this stage. Moving on to Bitcoin, which has been the difficult one in terms of the major markets here, and here sliding off the 50-day, the falling 50-day line there. That's around 59,500. Below that, still the risk of a move to the floor of that falling trend channel from back in March, the sort of consolidation of the big move up that we had at the beginning of the year, and 52,000 the risk while we stay below that 50-day line. Above it, still got the chance of a retest of this, the 200-day moving average and recent August resistance towards 65,000. But RSI still above neutral 50, so I suppose there's a glimmer of hope that we can dig ourselves out of this little slide off that 50-day line. Moving on to gold, which has been doing us proud of late, and here looks as though it's inevitable that we'll hit the top of that rising December trend channel there at 26.75, hopefully by the end of next month, maybe if we're really lucky by the end of this month. On the downside, not seeing anything lower than 24.80, which is the 50-day line and the floor of that rising trend channel. Moving on to the stocks, and a few names which have surprised us to the upside, which is rather unusual in the current environment. I suppose Altyn, we were looking for the 175, 180 level, and that's obviously been exceeded with a gap to the upside. That red line there, the best case scenario line, that's heading for 240, which hopefully we'll get by the end of this month while we remain above today's support zone around the 200 pence level. On to Greatland, which is a bit of a head scratcher at the moment. In fact, from the technicals, it's actually looking rather better than one might expect, given the dilution of the massive raise. Sort of U-shaped turnaround here at an end-of-day close back above the floor of the gap there, around 5.5 pence. Should be enough to give us at least an intermediate rally to try and fill that gap there up towards the 7 pence zone. Guessing, I suppose one would say that even if we don't manage to fill that gap, then 6 to 6.25 pence, half that gap, would be the destination. On the downside, we don't want to see really any multiple end-of-day closes back below the old April support there, around the 5.5 pence level, and obviously that support line projection there from last October at 5 pence, very much the line that has to be held. Moving on to GSTechnologies, where maybe it's a bit more straightforward. We have a U-shaped bull flag breakout, as I call them, and breaking the initial September high there around 0.78, at least temporarily so far today. We've got the top of the broadening triangle base there from back in May at 0.95. That ties in with the 200-day moving average area just below a penny, and that's the destination we're looking for by the end of next month, especially while we remain above the 50-day line there at 0.65 pence. That is a positive at the moment because it's starting to rise. You can see the blue candles there, and you can also see the RSI rebound at and above neutral 50, which tends to be a leading indicator on the upside. But I suppose the first trigger there is a break of 0.77 on an end-of-day close basis, the initial September resistance. Signs of recovery at GCM Resources after the rather ignominious decline that we had from back in the spring through, in double digits. But the makings of a W-shaped rebound here. Want to see an end-of-day close above the middle of that W, 2.93 pence. If we can do that, then we could see a journey towards 3.5 pence. And the 50-day line over the next 2 to 4 weeks. Best case at the moment is a move to 4 pence by the end of next month. Good turnaround here at Helix Exploration. Obviously, I interviewed the company the other week when the shares were still around 16 pence. The rug pull move that there was. But this now looks quite encouraging. RSI above neutral 50 at 51. And strong candles for the last couple of sessions. And that sort of U-shaped turnaround, normally a very strong pattern. And looking for 27 pence, perhaps as soon as the end of this month. But obviously one might have to allow a little bit more time there. If you're cautious, you want to see an end-of-day close back above the top of the gap there at 20.4 pence and the 50-day line there at 21.5. But it looks as though the turnaround there is in place. Moving on to Lexington, and here another W-shaped turnaround here and above the neckline resistance there, the middle of the W, 3.6 pence. We're actually looking this time for as high as 5.6 pence by the end of next month. The reason for the enthusiasm is the gap close that we had basically last week, and the rising 50-day line adding to the W-shaped turnaround that we've got there. And obviously the more time spent above the old December resistance there at 3.5 pence, the better this chart looks. Was suggesting that there's a turnaround afoot in LifeSafe, and that seems to have come to pass. That move up on Friday didn't look like a fluke, especially after many days of the shares not doing anything at all. So one presumes there will be some positive announcement coming up soon. 13 pence the top of that rising trend channel base, so that's what we're looking for over the next few days. And ideally we stay above the floor of the gap there at 10.75 pence. On to MicroSalt, which had a decent announcement today. And so maybe rumours of the company's demise are rather exaggerated. A possible falling wedge turnaround here, so off the 53-54 pence area, and that's above obviously the initial price that the shares had when they came to market, around 45 pence. But not out of the woods yet until we break the resistance line there from July at 64 pence, but just looking a little bit better now in terms of the technicals. Tech is next, and here another company with an announcement today, gapping up here within a rising trend channel from January, top of the channel there at 24 pence, looking for that. Maybe by the end of next month, if you can get a decent end-of-day close, back above the 50-day line at 18 pence. There's also the gap top there at 18.5 there, so those two areas really the areas to break to give us the move higher into the mid-20s. I covered MetalNRG yesterday, and very happy to see the shares are up nearly 20%. They were up a bit more earlier on. Top of the channel there, 0.57, and that's what we're looking for. So far, the high, 52.5, but looking for further gains while we're above today's support area around 0.44. On to Neometals, which is also looking as though it's turning itself around after a long time in the wilderness. Here, gapping up today. The key here, though, still breaking that resistance line there around 6 pence. And then for the shares to head up to the 7 pence area and the 200-day moving average, maybe by the end of next month. But the key here, holding recent swing support there at 4 pence. On to the last two. The first one is Synectics, and here we already have the shares in a broadening triangle, and at the top of the triangle they're heading towards £2.60 plus, looking for that by the end of this month, while we hold above the recent support area around 205. Ideally, the shares stay above the 220 pence level, given that that is somewhere in the middle of the gap higher. Finishing off with another stock which has done us proud, which is a sort of trending situation. Transense, initial target here up to around 190, maybe by the end of this month, but the bigger picture target, maybe for later in the autumn, up to as high as £2.25, which is the upper parallel of that rising February trend channel. But ideally, we stay on the right side of £1.65, which we are doing at the moment. That's it for me today. More updates tomorrow.